Glenn, I go back to your book, How Would a Patriot Act? Let me ask you the simple question this morning. Is the senator from Kentucky, Rand Paul, is he a patriot?
Absolutely. I mean, at least in this case he is. He's defending one of the core principles of the American founding, which is that the government doesn't spy on us unless they have reason to believe that we've done something wrong. And that's exactly the opposite of what the NSA mass surveillance program is about.
We're working with a new technology in a new time and space distant from 9/11. What would be your best outcome that would appease Republicans furious at their Senator Paul?
I mean, I think that the key distinction is between mass surveillance, putting the entire citizenry under a microscope of surveillance, versus targeted surveillance, which is about actually finding out the people doing bad things and monitoring only them. And there's definitely opportunities to pass a law that says to the NSA, you can and should be spying on actual terrorists and leave the rest of us alone. And I think that's the outcome not only Senator Paul, but all of his allies in both parties are trying to accomplish.
Glenn, is there any level of oversight that would make you comfortable with mass surveillance?
No, mass surveillance inherently is wrong. Why should the government at all be in the business of collecting data about what we as innocent, law-abiding citizens do and say and the people with whom we're speaking? It's inherently corrosive to basic liberties. That said, you could maybe imagine an oversight framework that would at least provide some controls. The problem is that the courts and the Congress have proven themselves very subservient to what the Pentagon and the intelligence community wants. They're very good at capturing all of those institutions, and oversight becomes a rubber stamp. So even in theory, if you could conceive of something, in practice, in Washington, it ends up not working.
So even taking that criticism to heart that the courts and Congress are very bad at sort of holding on to this, you said you could imagine a series of controls that would provide oversight. What would those controls look like?
I mean, I think the core principle that we settled on as a nation in the 70s, after all of those spying abuses of the J. Edgar Hoover years and the Nixon years were revealed, was this idea that in order to trust the government in spying on people, they have to go to a court and present evidence that the person on whom they want to spy is actually guilty of something or engaged in some kind of wrongdoing. And so if you had a robust court where two sides were in attendance, so one side was arguing the case of against the government, you had some transparency to that court, it operated like a real judiciary, and then the NSA could only spy on the people when they convinced a real court that they deserved it, that would be the kind of thing that could work.
Glenn, we had a guest on earlier on Bloomberg Surveillance who flat out called Edward Snowden a traitor. That is a polarizing language of this moment. Where do you want this debate to be in 2 years? If we're that polarized right now in America about our spying, where can we constructively be 2 years from now?
I mean, I think it's moved a lot in 2 years. You've had public figures like Juan Williams and Hoddin Carter, the former Assistant Secretary of State, come out in the last couple months and say, you know what, I was wrong about Edward Snowden. And it's the same trajectory as what happened with Daniel Ellsberg. People called him a traitor, and now he's widely regarded as a hero. But I think the bigger and more important question is surveillance, not Snowden. And on that, this is going to be the first time in the post-9/11 era that we take away powers from the government in the name of terrorism rather than give them more powers. And I think that's critical.
Very quickly here, Glenn, from where you sit, can Rand Paul use this as a constructive political exercise? Will the events of the last 24 hours benefit his campaign?
Yeah, he's galvanizing a critical debate. And as I always understood it, that's what presidential politics are supposed to be about.
Glenn Greenwald, thank you so much. Greatly appreciated from Rio this morning.